In her previous life, Lu Xian's beloved Song Wanqing had only been in the mansion for 2 months when the child in her womb miscarried, and her body was left damaged, unable to bear children again. A young maid from my room immediately came forward to accuse me, claiming that I had put an abortifacient in Song Wanqing's food, and Song Wanqing, who hated me to the bone, sneaked into my room late one night and stabbed me more than a dozen times. Later, Song Wanqing was accused of attempting to murder the mistress, had her limbs broken, and was thrown into the slums, where she was soon violated and died. When I was on the verge of death, Lu Xian came to visit, holding his cousin Lin Yukai in his arms. Lin Yukai, who had always been cautious and timid in front of me, now held her head high, full of pride. You probably don't know this, but Xian has always loved me. If it weren't for you using your dowry to cover the marquisate financial losses, I would be the mistress of the household now. I was the one who arranged for Song Wanqing to take that miscarriage-inducing medicine. If it weren't for that, how would that fool have willingly helped me get rid of you and the bastard in your womb? By the way, I heard that the Duchess, upon learning of her beloved daughter's severe injury, was so distressed that she suffered a heart attack and passed away last night. I touched my lower abdomen and smiled bitterly, realizing that Song Wanqing and I were merely stepping stones for Lin Yukai to enter the Marquis's mansion. I died with unwillingness. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day Lu Xian wanted to take a concubine. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. Shui Wanqing saved my life on the frontier battlefield, and we share a deep connection. What's more, she is now carrying my child. I don't want to hide this from you, nor can I betray her. That's why I've come to discuss with you today. Would it be possible to allow Wanqing to enter our household as a concubine? Lu Xian stood before me, his expression solemn. Song Wanqing was shielded behind Lu Xian, her face flushed. She cautiously turned her head to glance at me. A lotus flower emerging from clear water, naturally adorned without artificial embellishment, truly a natural beauty. For a moment, I was somewhat dazed. In my previous life, on just such a sunny day, Lu Xian brought back the pregnant Song Wanqing from outside, repeatedly insisting on taking her as his concubine. I was originally the legitimate daughter of the Duke's household. My mother was over 30 when she finally had me, her only child. Naturally, she cherished me as if I were the apple of her eye. Marrying Lu Xian was already a step down for me. If it weren't for the Emperor's decree, my mother would never have agreed. Fortunately, on the day he came to propose and present the betrothal gifts, Lu Xian made a vow before my mother, swearing that he would never take a concubine and would remain devoted to me alone for the rest of his life. It was only then that my mother felt at ease letting me marry into the Marquis's household. Recalling Lu Xian's past vows, I naturally refused. I even had a big argument with him, making it known to everyone. People in the capital all said that I, Sheningxue, was jealous by nature. As a woman, I couldn't even tolerate my husband's concubines. Fortunately, my mother-in-law always stood by my side. She glanced at Song Wanqing's slightly swollen belly and sternly scolded Lu Xian. You wretch, a Shui has only been married into the family for a year, and the mistress hasn't even given birth to a legitimate heir yet. How dare you let a concubine bear a child first? Mother, no matter what you say today, I cannot let Wanqing down. As if possessed, Lu Xian ignored even his mother's words and forcibly brought Song Wanqing into the household. The mother-in-law was so angry that she ordered the household punishment for Lu Xian, and for more than half a month, she did not allow him to step into her Tingzhu hall. After Song Wanqing entered the mansion, Lu Xian settled her in the Yaoyu terrace, which was closest to him. He spent over 20 days each month staying in her room, showering her with extreme affection. Relying on Lu Xian's favor, Song Wanqing also stayed in her own courtyard all day long, not even coming once to pay her respects. Lu Xian's cousin, Lin Yukai, often came to talk with me, complaining every time, cousin-in-law, this concubine Song is far too arrogant, relying on favor. No matter what, you are the mistress of the Marquis's household, she's just a concubine, yet she shows you such disrespect. She's just pregnant, and already so domineering. If she gives birth to a son, who knows what kind of trouble she'll stir up at that time. I was blinded by jealousy and failed to detect the probing and excitement in Lin Yuechi's tone. As Song Wanqing's belly grew larger, my dissatisfaction with her grew stronger. However, Song Wanqing was also unfortunate. When she was 5 months pregnant, she suddenly developed abdominal pain. She cried and screamed for a day and a night, eventually giving birth to a boy whose entire body was blue and purple. The doctor said that Song Wanqing had injured her body from the miscarriage and would likely never be able to conceive again. Lu Ziyan flew into a rage and ordered a thorough investigation of the matter. At that moment, a low-ranking maid from my room timidly stepped forward. She insisted that it was I. Out of jealousy toward Consort Song, who had secretly ordered her to administer an abortifacient to Consort Song. After saying this, the maid dashed herself against a pillar and died, leaving no evidence to prove otherwise. Song Wanqing's face was as pale as paper, and she asked me in disbelief, "Madam, I have no grudge against you. Why are you so cruel as to kill my child?" I was utterly astonished and didn't have time to say anything. Lin Yukai, who was standing nearby, stepped forward indignantly on my behalf and said, "Who do you think you are? Just an orphan with no parents, and you dare to think you're on equal footing with my cousin's wife? Blame your own bad luck for not being able to even hold on to a child." I opened my mouth to explain, but Lu Ziyan suddenly erupted in a furious roar. "All of you, get out. If anyone dares to leak even a word of what happened today, I'll cut out their tongue." Lu Ziyan, after all, considered my status. Although he had suspicions about me, he ultimately did not press the matter further. He only became more guarded against me, confining me to my own courtyard and forbidding anyone from approaching. I always believed that the innocent need not worry, since I hadn't done anything wrong. I naturally didn't dwell on it, but I never expected that Song Wanqing, who had lost her child, would harbor such intense hatred for me. Song Wanqing sneaked into my room late one night, startling me awake from my sleep, and I instinctively tried to scream. The next second, I lost all my strength. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but when I woke up again, I found that the tendons in my hands and feet had been severed, and I could no longer make a sound with my throat. Lin Yukai tearfully told me that it was Song Wanqing who had come for revenge, stabbing me more than a dozen times. "Don't worry, sister-in-law. That wretched woman dared to harm the mistress and has already been dealt with on the old madam's orders. Just focus on recovering, everything will get better." Even so, my health continued to decline day by day. On my deathbed, Lu Ziyan brought Lin Yukai to see me. By then, I no longer had the strength to even lift my hand. Lin Yukai stepped forward, covering her nose and mouth with a handkerchief, and carefully examined my body. The servants in the Marquis's household were adept at treating people according to their status. Upon learning of my downfall, they became increasingly neglectful toward me. It was summer at the time, and the wounds on my body had begun to fester and emit a foul odor due to the untimely change of bandages. Lin Yukai noticed that I was barely breathing, more gasping out than taking in air, and she joyfully threw herself into Lu Ziyan's arms. "Brother Ziyan, this wretched woman is finally going to die." Lu Ziyan then planted a doting kiss on her head and said, "After she dies, I will rightfully marry you. You have no idea how nauseated I've felt every day and night I've spent with her." I was utterly shocked and struggled to sit up. Lin Yukai lifted her chin, no longer showing the cautious and timid demeanor she had when she first stayed at the Marquis's residence. "Sheningshue, I'll be merciful and let you die with clarity. Do you really think Xian loves that Song Wanqing? Xian and I grew up together. If it weren't for the Marquis's financial deficits that needed your dowry to fill the gap, do you think he would have married you?" I felt as if struck by lightning. It turns out that the one in Lu Ziyan's heart is his cousin Lin Yukai. Lin Yuechi's mother and her mother-in-law are biological sisters, but her husband's family was not prominent, and later they were demoted for offending the emperor. Lin Yuechi's mother, concerned for her daughter, entrusted her to her mother-in-law. Lu Ziyan and Lin Yukai spent their days together, and it was inevitable that they developed feelings for each other. Back then, when I went out to offer incense, I encountered bandits on the way, and it was Lu Ziyan who happened to pass by and saved me. Admittedly, I did feel a flutter of emotion at the time, but I never thought of having anything with Lu Ziyan. In the end, it was Lu Ziyan's mother who, at the palace banquet, requested the emperor to bestow a marriage decree. She said that Lu Ziyan had long admired me and would marry no one else. Lu Ziyan was also present, yet he did not refute it. No wonder, shortly after I entered the household, my mother-in-law and Lu Ziyan tried to borrow my dowry from me under various pretexts, but I heeded my mother's advice and never relented. Who knew you were so stingy? We had no choice but to resort to this. I arranged for Song Wanqing's miscarriage-inducing medicine. It's just her bad luck. That child of hers wouldn't have survived anyway. Might as well kill two birds with one stone. After your death, we will publicly declare that you deserved your fate, that you harmed the concubine and plotted against the heir of the Marquis's household, leading to such an end. I doubt the Duke's estate will have the face to demand the return of your dowry then. I glared at the two people before me, wishing I could skin them alive and break their bones on the spot. Lin Yukai laughed exaggeratedly at the sight of my struggle. I almost forgot the Duchess, upon hearing of her beloved daughter's severe injury, passed away suddenly from a heart condition last night. I've heard the Duke is also bedridden. It seems the Duke's estate is too overwhelmed to spare any effort for you, a married-off daughter. I was so frantic and furious that I vomited a large mouthful of blood on the spot. Lu Ziyan, afraid of getting stained, took a few steps back. I was on the verge of death when Lin Yukai stepped forward, bent down, and whispered softly, "There's one last thing. I suppose you don't even know it yourself. You're already 2 months pregnant, aren't you? TSK, that useless Song Wanqing, after capturing you, only wanted to find out the truth about her miscarriage. I had to give her a helping hand. All these injuries on you were inflicted by Brother Ziyan himself, including the child in your womb. Brother Ziyan didn't hesitate at all when he stabbed you." Lin Yuechi's voice grew more and more distant. I was completely plunged into darkness. Only at this moment did I realize that all my struggles with Song Wanqing were merely paving the way for her. Even my marriage to Lu Ziyan was merely a pawn used by the Marquis's household to cover their financial deficits. Faced once again with Lu Ziyan's request to take a concubine, I suddenly laughed. Very well. Since Sister Wanqing is not only your benefactor but also carries your child, she must not be wronged, in my opinion. Let her enter the household as an honored concubine, and we shall hold a grand celebration for this joyous occasion. I swear, were you serious just now? I snapped back to reality. Lu Ziyan seemed not to have expected me to agree so readily, a faint trace of regret flickering in his eyes. Perhaps in his imagination, I should have made a huge scene with him. Preferably one that would become known to everyone, letting all see how jealous I am. After all, we have been married for less than a year. As the Marquis's wife, I have yet to bear a child, while Song Wanqing, a woman who hasn't even entered the household, is already pregnant. How could I possibly tolerate it? As for Lu Ziyan, even if outsiders were to find out, they would only say he is repaying a kindness and keeping his word. Of course, my lord. I composed my expression and spoke with utmost seriousness. Wanqing saved your life, making her a great benefactor to our household. Moreover, she is now with child, so it is only right that she enters our household with full honors. Lu Ziyan's eyes widened in surprise. Back when I was a maiden in the Duke's residence, I was known for being intolerant of any wrongdoing. Since when had I become so accommodating? Even Song Wanqing, standing behind him, stared at me in astonishment. I fixed my gaze on Song Wanqing, blushing. She spoke cautiously. Madam, are you truly willing to let me enter the household?" I walked over and affectionately took Song Wanqing's hand. "Dear sister, my husband and I are one. Naturally, I will respect those he cherishes. However, you were originally a young lady from a good family, and being a noble concubine is somewhat beneath you. Rest assured, if you can give the Marquis's household a young master, I will naturally request from my mother-in-law to elevate you to an equal wife. Wouldn't it be wonderful for us to serve our husband together from then on? Let's go. We'll go inform mother about this matter right away." I pulled Song Wanqing along with me towards mother's courtyard, completely unaware that Lu Ziyan's expression behind us was growing increasingly grim. As soon as we arrived at the listening bamboo hall, I saw Lin Yukai chatting with mother, both of them laughing and talking happily. I pulled Song Wanqing to kneel before mother and stated my intention to take Song Wanqing as a noble concubine. Lin Yuechi's radiant expression instantly darkened, her jealous gaze impossible to conceal, almost grinding her silver teeth to dust. Upon hearing Lu Xian's intention to take a concubine, her mother-in-law refused without a second thought. Frowning at Lu Xian, who had followed her in, she said, "Foolish child, as the primary wife. Aishwar has yet to bear a legitimate heir. How could you allow a concubine to become pregnant?" Thinking back to my past life, I couldn't help but sigh. My mother-in-law's acting skills were truly remarkable. It was a shame she hadn't joined the Southern Opera troupe. The mother-in-law blinked meaningfully and said, "You and Aishwar have only been married for half a year. Not only would this break Aishwar's heart, but what would others think of you if word got out?" I know that my mother-in-law wasn't thinking of me, but was afraid that the matter of taking a concubine would reach my father and mother's ears. Among dukes, marquises, and counts, the duke's residence has always held a higher status than the marquis's. Lu Xian was drenched in cold sweat, not even daring to lift his head. "Mother, I agree to this matter." I stood up and began to smooth things over. I dutifully and responsibly played the role of a generous and virtuous matriarch. I reasoned with my mother-in-law, appealing to her emotions and logic, making it clear that my words were all for the good of the Marquis's household. In the end, my mother-in-law held me in her arms with heartfelt sympathy. "My child, you've been wronged." I wiped the tears from the corner of my eyes and shook my head. "Mother, for my husband's sake, Aishwar doesn't feel wronged. There's just one thing. This time, I agreed to it only because Wanqing is the one my husband holds dear to his heart. And she is with child, but no matter how you look at it, people will gossip if this gets out. I don't mind for myself, but I'm afraid the talk might reach my father's ears." Mentioning my father, who cherishes his daughter above all else, my mother-in-law understood completely. She patted my hand and sternly ordered Lu Xian to kneel. "You wretched fool, this time your wish has been granted, but from now on, you must not drag every foul and filthy thing into your chamber. If you dare break Aishwar's heart again, see if I don't skin you alive." Lu Xian's expression was conflicted, but he could only reluctantly agree for the time being. With that, my mother-in-law also took out 2 sets of exquisite gold filigree jeweled headpieces and some farmland and shops from the dowry to give to me as compensation, thinking about how the Marquis estate is currently in deficit with no clear way to fill the gap. Yet my mother-in-law still pretends to have no shortage of silver to please me. I feel quite satisfied. As for Lin Yukai, standing beside me, she was so tense she nearly twisted her handkerchief to shreds. Before I even entered the household, Lin Yukai had already been assisting my mother-in-law with some of the household management duties. As the legitimate wife, I had shown immense generosity by agreeing to let my husband take a concubine just half a year into our marriage. It was only natural, though heartbreaking, that I would personally oversee the arrangements, so I feigned a look of melancholy and said, "Mother, it's rare for the Marquis's household to have such a joyous occasion. I fear I may not be able to handle everything perfectly. Would it be possible to have cousin Yukai assist me? Only one thing, Sister Wanqing shares a deep bond with my husband, and we must not let her feel slighted in any way. This wedding must be carried out with proper dignity. Since Lin Yukai and Lu Xian are true love, then I want to see how Lin Yukai would feel personally arranging the wedding of the one she loves." The mother-in-law glanced at Lin Yukai and nodded, saying, "Very well, it's commendable that you are so magnanimous. As for the wedding, let's follow Aishwar's suggestion. All expenses will be covered from the common fund." Lu Xian looked at his mother-in-law with a troubled expression, and she shook her head almost imperceptibly. With her mother-in-law's word, Lin Yukai had no choice but to agree. Looking at Song Wanqing, who was gazing at me with gratitude at that moment, I sighed inwardly. In this life, I don't seek to reconcile with Song Wanqing, only to avoid mutual harm. On the day Song Wanqing entered the household, many noble women and officials' wives came to offer their congratulations. The noble women couldn't help but exclaim, as expected of someone from a prominent family, "The Marquis's wife is truly magnanimous. Even the welcoming ceremony for a concubine is so lavish." I just smiled without saying a word. Anyway, it wasn't my money being spent. Lin Yukai was busy running around helping out, her legs worn thin from all the work, though she was seething with hatred inside. She had to put on a happy face. After 3 rounds of drinks, she came to me with a flushed face, unable to hold back any longer. "Cousin's wife, you're being foolish. How could you allow your husband to take a concubine? Besides, she's just a concubine, yet you're giving her such a grand reception, you're really giving her too much face." I lowered my gaze and smiled. Who told her she's the one her husband loves? They've faced life and death together on the battlefield, their bond is just different. Lin Yukai was very disdainful and said urgently, "Clearly, she took advantage of your absence and used her looks to seduce your cousin. An orphan with no parents isn't even fit to be a rough maid for you, cousin-in-law." These words sounded like they were for my benefit, but in reality, they were meant to drive a wedge between me and Song Wanqing. After Lin Yukai finished her performance, I then put on a look of deep grievance. "My dear sister, what can I do? Your cousin values her, and I am but a mere woman who cannot go against my husband's wishes." As I spoke, I observed Lin Yuechi's expression. "Actually, sister, you've been in the household for so long, and we know each other well. I originally planned to wait until next year to have my husband take you in as a concubine. Once you have a child, we could elevate you to an equal wife, so you wouldn't be wronged." Lin Yuechi's eyes lit up, and her face instantly flushed with shyness. "It's just a pity that my husband's heart belongs to Song Wanqing. As a family of noble standing, it is not appropriate to take concubines too frequently. But don't worry, sister, I will surely find you a good marriage in the future." As soon as these words were spoken, Lin Yuechi's expression instantly darkened. She chatted with me for a few more words with a listless expression, then excused herself, claiming she was unwell, and left. For half a month since Song Wanqing entered the household, Lu Ziyan spent most of his time with her. "Shui, Wanqing is new here and has a child to care for. It's only natural that I spend more time with her. I'm sure Shui isn't the kind of ordinary woman who gets jealous and will surely understand her husband, right?" Lu Ziyan spoke with such high-sounding words, but in reality, he was deliberately trying to provoke me. But I was neither anxious nor angry. Not only did I not cause trouble for Song Wanqing, but I also used the Marquis's money to buy many fine things and sent them to her courtyard. As the money in the accounts dwindled, Lu Ziyan gradually grew restless. He repeatedly hinted and inquired about my dowry. I looked at him with a face full of confusion. "Husband, why are you so concerned about my dowry? After all, a woman's dowry belongs solely to her. If the husband's family covets it, they would be ridiculed by everyone under heaven. That's why Lu Ziyan went to such great lengths to scheme against me in my past life. But the first one who couldn't bear it was Lin Yukai. I don't know if it was because Lu Ziyan's acting was too convincing, or if Lin Yukai actually took my words to heart that day. According to the old woman planted in Lin Yuechi's courtyard, Lin Yukai has visited Qingcheng Temple 4 times in the past half-month to burn incense and pray for blessings. I calculated the timing and realized that Lu Ziyan had made excuses to go out on exactly those days. The old woman whispered in my ear, "Miss." I waited until they left before going in to look. What a huge bed it was. The Marquis is truly shameless. Miss has already taken in a concubine for him. But even a rabbit doesn't eat the grass by its own burrow. How could he even lay hands on his own cousin? The old woman's disdain was evident. So I signaled for her to leave first. This matter must not be spread. Lin Yukai is now overly anxious about Lu Ziyan, consumed by jealousy, and clings to him almost every day, several times. The two of them had private meetings in the mansion and were almost caught. Ironically, the persona Lu Ziyan is currently projecting is that his true love is Song Wanqing. Lu Ziyan was busy dealing with everyone, coaxing one after another, which was mentally exhausting and physically draining, so occasionally, on a whim, he would rest in my room to find a moment of peace. But every time I came into contact with him, I felt disgusted. Whenever he came, I would light incense to make him fall asleep unknowingly. Looking at his sanctimonious face, I decided to give him some peace and quiet by adding a few other things to the incense burner. After waking up, Lu Ziyan was a bit bewildered by my shy expression. "Shui, last night I covered his mouth with a handkerchief. You have the nerve to say that. You mustn't be so reckless in the future." I rarely showed a delicate, feminine side in front of Lu Ziyan, and he was momentarily stunned before bursting into laughter and pulling me into his arms. I fought back my disgust, acting all the more gentle and attentive. Another half-month passed in this manner, and something minor happened on Song Wanqing's side. According to the maid's report, Song Wanqing and Lu Ziyan had been inseparable just a few days ago. but since yesterday, she has been acting strangely. Song Wanqing actually took the initiative to move to the Linfeng residence in the southwest corner, using the excuse that she needed quiet rest during her pregnancy. That place is so far that it takes Lu Ziyan half an hour just to walk there. When Lu Ziyan visits, she still acts as warmly as usual. But as soon as he leaves, she throws away everything he used, looking utterly disgusted. This is so unusual. I gradually began to form a suspicion in my heart. That day, I instructed Lu Xiao to prepare a bowl of fetal stabilizing medicine, intending to personally deliver it to Song Wanqing. Lu Xiao was very cautious, with an expression that said, "You can leave it to me with confidence." No sooner had I left than she dismissed all the maids and elderly servants from the room. As I entered the room, Lu Xiao was just taking a blue and white porcelain bottle from her bosom. The miscarriage-preventing medicine on the stove had just come to a boil. And without a second thought, she grinned wickedly and raised the bottle to sprinkle its contents into the medicine pot. I couldn't help but scream, "Lu Xiao, what are you doing?" Lu Xiao, with a face full of resentment, retorted, "Madam, I understand you. It's all that little vixen seducing the Marquis. Being a concubine is one thing, but wanting to bear a child before you, isn't that a slap in your face? Don't worry, this medicine is something I bought myself, even if it comes to light. You can just pretend you knew nothing about it." I rubbed my forehead. This girl grew up with me and knows me very well. Usually, just a glance from me is enough for her to tell whether today's dishes are too salty or too bland. I suppose, in her heart, she must think I would never tolerate Song Wanqing. I sighed and told her to brew a fresh, clean bowl of fetal tonic. According to her past life, Song Wanqing was also just a pawn. Like me, she is a pitiful person, as the saying goes. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. When Lu Xiao and I arrived at Song Wanqing's room, she was staring blankly at the sky. With a sharp thwack, Lu Xiao placed the bowl of pitch-black miscarriage-preventing medicine in front of her. Song Wanqing was startled. Staring blankly at the bottom of the bowl before looking up at my expression, she said softly, "Shiningshue, I know you're anxious, but don't rush just yet." Lu Xiao and I exchanged a glance, our eyes filled with confusion. I coughed to cover my embarrassment. "You're overthinking it. This is a special prenatal medicine I specifically asked the imperial physician for." Song Wanqing clearly didn't believe me and gave me a look. I shot Lu Xiao a glare and guiltily rubbed my nose. Song Wanqing touched her slightly swollen belly, her gaze turning to the window with a restrained expression. "Madam, do you believe that someone who has died once can be reborn?" Unexpectedly, the suspicion in my heart turned out to be true. Amidst Lu Xiao's shocked gaze, she haltingly told me the stories from her past life that I had never known. Song Wanqing's parents ran a medicine shop at the border, and the family of 3 lived a simple yet happy life, until Song Wanqing went out to gather herbs and by chance saved the severely injured Lu Ziyan. After Lu Ziyan recovered, he asked Song Wanqing's parents for her hand in marriage. The two were married in a ceremony witnessed by their parents and fellow villagers, living as an ordinary couple, deeply in love. At that time, Song Wanqing did not know that he was a general sent to quell the rebellion, nor did she know that he already had a wife in the capital. Later, the enemy troops entered the city, burning, killing, and looting, and Song Wanqing's family's medicine shop also suffered disaster. Her parents died tragically, and at the last moment, Lu Ziyan descended from the sky, annihilated the enemy troops, and saved Song Wanqing. Lu Ziyan then confessed his identity to Song Wanqing. She wanted to divorce him, but she was already carrying his child in her womb, with her parents tragically dead. Song Wanqing had not a single relative left in this world. Borders were often plagued by war, and as a fatherless, motherless orphan girl with a beautiful face, her fate was all too predictable. Song Wanqing had no choice but to follow Lu Ziyan back to Shengjing, placing all her hopes in him. As she had said, she truly only wished to safely give birth to this child. At this point, Song Wanqing revealed a bitter smile. "You and I, we are the biggest fools under the heavens." After I died, my soul lingered by Lu Ziyan's side, and only then did I learn his true nature. Half a year after you and I passed away, Lu Ziyan welcomed Lin Yukai into his home on their wedding night. The two of them were still boasting about their cunning schemes, how even you, Shiningshue, a noblewoman from a prestigious family, were nothing but a plaything in their hands. As for me, Lu Ziyan had conceived this plan in his heart after meeting me, even going so far as to personally kill my parents for it. I was utterly astonished. Song Wanqing nearly crushed the teacup in her hand, her face burning with hatred. That day the enemy had already been suppressed. The ones who broke into my home were Lu Ziyan's personal troops. Only if my parents died would I become more dependent on him, and his plan would be foolproof, I said in shock. Then why, after entering the mansion, did you never come to my courtyard to pay respects, and why did you oppose me in everything? Song Wanqing was even more shocked than I was. What do you mean by that? Could it be that you— I nodded firmly. She smiled bitterly. I didn't come to pay my respects because Lu Ziyan said you were jealous and feared you would make things difficult for me. And that time at the family banquet, the reason I replaced the peanut pastry in front of you was because Lu Ziyan said you were allergic to peanuts. How was I to know it was your favorite? You are Lu Ziyan's lawfully wedded wife, and in the end, I am the one who wronged you, although I grew up in the countryside. My parents taught me never to do anything that goes against my conscience. As she said this, her face flushed slightly. I held her hand and shook my head. No, it's that despicable couple who are the ones without conscience. If anyone deserves retribution, it should be them. In the days that followed, Song Wanqing returned to her old self, even treating Lu Ziyan with more enthusiasm than before. Even the servant who came to deliver the message couldn't help but curse Song Wanqing as a seductress, saying she had bewitched Lu Ziyan to the point of losing his mind. No matter how tolerant I am still a woman. Seeing Lu Ziyan dote on Song Wanqing so much, I couldn't help but cause two scenes in the household. My mother-in-law also spoke to Lu Ziyan twice, but he brushed it off each time with the excuse that Song Wanqing needed care during her pregnancy. My mother-in-law held me in her arms sympathetically and said, Aishwe, Ziyan is just confused for the moment. As long as you quickly conceive a legitimate heir, he will naturally come to his senses. I nodded with tears in my eyes. Lu Ziyan had not visited my courtyard for a month. According to the old woman from Lin Yuechi's place, Lu Ziyan had also not gone to Qingcheng Temple for a secret rendezvous with Lin Yukai for a month, compared to Lin Yukai, who only knew how to be jealous all day. Song Wanqing was more understanding. Moreover, Song Wanqing's beauty was so captivating that even a woman would feel her heart tremble at the sight of her distress. What man wouldn't be fond of her? Lin Yukai fell seriously ill from anger, and only then did Lu Ziyan visit her twice. It is said that the two dismissed their attendants and entered the inner chamber, staying there for a full hour before emerging. It seems the two have reconciled, but I can't stand to see them so happy. That day, after Lu Ziyan had dinner with me, Lin Yukai sent someone to call for him again, using the excuse of feeling unwell. Since the old lady was in poor health and shouldn't be disturbed, she could only ask Lu Ziyan to go check on her. My expression remained unchanged as I took small sips of the exquisite Longtuan Shengxue tea. This Longtuan Shengxue was a tribute tea, with only 5 cakes in total. His Majesty rewarded Father with 2 cakes, and Father promptly sent them to the Marquis's residence. This was to show the Duke's household's regard for their daughter, a constant reminder for Lu Ziyan to treat me well. Lu Ziyan had just risen to leave, but after a glance in my direction, he sat back down resentfully. He said impatiently, If you're sick, go find a doctor. What use is coming to me? I set down my tea and spoke anxiously. Husband, your cousin's illness has dragged on for quite some time. If something serious were to happen, it would be terrible. I should go with you to check on her. Lu Ziyan instinctively wanted to stop me, but as the mistress of the Marquis household, it was perfectly justified for me to visit and care for a cousin staying under our roof. Lu Ziyan opened his mouth but ultimately said nothing. When we arrived at Lin Yuechi's room, I deliberately slowed my pace, falling behind Lu Ziyan. The moment Lin Yukai caught sight of Lu Ziyan, her eyes lit up with delight, and she immediately rose to greet him. It wasn't until she noticed me behind Lu Ziyan that she murmured, Cousin's wife, what brings you here? I smiled and took her hand, teasing, What, is it only your cousin who's allowed to visit you, and not me, his wife? Lin Yukai laughed sheepishly. Of course not. I took my seat. With Lu Ziyan and Lin Yukai sitting on either side of me, I glanced around nervously. The items in Lin Yuechi's room were far more valuable than those in mine. Yet her monthly allowance was only 10 taels of silver. It didn't take much thought to realize that Lu Ziyan must have used his private savings to buy them for her. From the moment I entered the room, their eyes followed me closely, both visibly nervous, afraid I might discover any clue, but I didn't say much more, first showing concern for Lin Yuechi's condition and suggesting that a physician be called to properly examine her. Lin Yukai wasn't actually ill and could only say that she was already much better. Blaming the maids for being indiscreet and disturbing Lu Ziyan and me without permission. Hearing this, I put away my smile and got straight to the point of the day. I'm glad to hear you're well, cousin Yukai. It just so happens that I suddenly remembered something. You're now at the age to be married. Mother-in-law is too old to take on such matters, and my husband, being a man, can't handle this, so it falls to me, as your sister-in-law, to show you some extra care, cousin. Do you have a man you fancy? If his character and family background are acceptable, I will take charge and arrange this marriage for you. Upon hearing that I intended to have her married off, Lin Yukai shook her head like a rattledrum, her legs giving way as she knelt before me, her eyes reddening with urgency. Cousin-in-law, Yukai has no intention of marrying at the moment. Yukai has been deeply cared for by Imu and only wishes to stay by aunt's side for a lifetime. I helped Lin Yukai up from the ground and said disapprovingly, what foolish talk is this? What woman doesn't marry? Besides, I drew out my tone, observing the expressions on Lu Ziyan and Lin Yuechi's faces. I teased mischievously, cousin, didn't you already have someone in mind? I suppose you're too shy to tell us. At these words, Lu Ziyan's face instantly darkened, and Lin Yukai was startled, nearly on the verge of tears. Cousin-in-law, I don't, she pleaded anxiously. I called out to Lu Xiao, bring the item over. Lu Xiao paid her respects to Lu Ziyan and took out a pouch embroidered with a mandarin duck pattern. Inside the pouch was a small portrait. Lu Xiao slowly unfolded it in front of the three of us, and the man depicted bore a striking resemblance to Lu Ziyan, about 6 or 7 parts alike. Lin Yukai stood frozen in place, not daring to move. Lu Ziyan wasn't faring much better either, with a fine layer of sweat beading on his forehead. The atmosphere in the room instantly dropped to freezing point, yet I turned a blind eye to it. I looked seriously at Lin Yukai and said, cousin, this small portrait was accidentally picked up in the garden by Aunt Song's maid. After she found it, she brought it to me first. I recognized at a glance that the embroidery was your handiwork, so I held on to it. Otherwise, what would have happened if someone else had picked it up? But if you have someone you fancy, you could have just told me privately. Why keep it a secret? Is it because this man's identity is special and cannot be disclosed to outsiders? As time passed, Lin Yuechi's face grew increasingly pale. She bit her lower lip tightly, to the point where she could no longer even sit still. Cousin's wife, I interrupted her and asked Alexio with a smile, Alexio, who do you think the man in this painting resembles? Is he someone from our Marquis's household? Alexio stepped forward and bowed to the three of us, then carefully took the small portrait in her hand to examine it closely. With a serious expression, she said, Madam, in my humble opinion, the person in this painting bears some resemblance to Zhong Yang, the groom who just entered the mansion not long ago. At these words, Lin Yuechi's hand stopped trembling, and instead, she looked at Lu Ziyan with utter shock. Husband, do you think it looks like him? Lu Ziyan pretended to examine it for a moment before solemnly replying, there is indeed some resemblance. I looked at Lin Yukai with great interest and complained, this is your fault, sister, since you have someone in your heart, as long as he is a good person, it doesn't matter if his status is low. Why did you have to hide it from me and my husband? Lin Yukai forced a smile and couldn't say a word for a long time, with the expression of someone who has been through it all. I instructed Lu Ziyan, who was trying to play dead, the groom is from the outer courtyard, so it's up to you, husband, to check if his family background is clean. If everything is fine, let's help this loving couple as soon as possible. Lu Ziyan wiped the sweat from his brow and glanced at Lin Yukai. Her eyes were filled with helplessness, reluctance, and pity. Lin Yuechi's eyes reddened, and she looked up at Lu Ziyan with tearful eyes. I asked in surprise, what's wrong, sister? Is the person in this portrait not Zhong Yang, but someone else? I said generously. I have no sisters at home, and I treat you as my own younger sister. As long as you tell me who this person is, I will certainly stand up for you. With that, I personally picked up that small portrait. Lu Ziyan sprang to his feet and said loudly to Lin Yukai, "Stop crying. Your cousin's wife has been so considerate of you. Shouldn't you hurry and thank her?" Lin Yukai closed her eyes briefly, then resignedly said, "Yukai thanks her cousin's wife." Lin Yuechi's wedding was set for after the Mid-Autumn Festival, on the 3rd day of the 10th month. Upon learning that Lin Yukai had actually pledged her life to a stable hand, her mother-in-law was so enraged that she made Lin kneel in punishment for 2 hours. Although she had intended to prevent this, Lin Yukai was determined to marry the stable hand, and as just an aunt, there was little she could do. She could only have Lu Ziyan arrange an insignificant idle position for the stable hand in the military, so that the matter wouldn't sound too disgraceful if it got out. Soon, the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet arrived. Lu Ziyan said that the Hu Mansion is celebrating the birth of a new child this year, and with Lin Yukai about to be married, he insisted that I make the banquet especially lively. From what I know, Lin Yukai has appeared calm on the surface these days, but in private, she has confronted Lu Ziyan several times. The worst time, Lu Ziyan's face was even scratched up. I pretended to be concerned and asked about it, but Lu Ziyan only said it was the cat that scratched him. On the day of the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet, Song Wanqing, who had not been seen for a long time, also made an appearance. Lu Ziyan supported her the entire time, being very careful. For a moment, I was dazed. Perhaps Lu Ziyan's feelings for Song Wanqing were not entirely false. But who cares about that little bit of genuine affection? Song Wanqing was 6 months pregnant. Her belly was high and round, making movement somewhat difficult. Lu Ziyan kept serving her food and asking if she was tired or needed to rest, completely unaware that Lin Yukai, who was silently drinking nearby, had already reddened eyes. After several rounds of drinks, Song Wanqing supported her belly and bowed to her mother-in-law, claiming that she couldn't handle it anymore. She wanted to leave early to rest. My mother-in-law, after all, was concerned about the grandson in Song Wanqing's belly. Although she pretended to fear that I would be displeased with Song Wanqing, she secretly sent her many nourishing supplements for the pregnancy. Hearing that Song Wanqing was tired, she immediately instructed the maid to escort her back properly. After Song Wanqing left, my mother-in-law's enthusiasm didn't wane. She pulled the rest of us to drink a few more cups. I gazed in the direction Song Wanqing had just left, my emotions in turmoil. Lu Xiao gently pressed my shoulder from behind, and I felt much calmer. After the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, Song Wanqing's personal maid, Sayue, came running toward us in tears, stumbling and falling once in her haste. "Madam, mistress, please come quickly. The concubine fell on her way back and is now bleeding." "What's going on?" Mother-in-law clutched her chest and asked urgently. I supported mother-in-law and called out to the stunned Lu Ziyan, "Husband, hurry and call the doctor." Our group arrived at Linfeng residence, and as soon as we entered the courtyard, we heard Song Wanqing's heart-wrenching cries. I couldn't help but tighten my grip on my handkerchief. Glancing around inadvertently, I saw worry on my mother-in-law and Lu Ziyan's faces. But only Lin Yukai faintly revealed a hint of smugness. Maids and elderly servants bustled about, carrying basin after basin of hot water inside. My mother-in-law and I went in to take a look. Song Wanqing was as pale as a sheet, her hands gripping the bedsheet so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Looking down, a large area of the bedsheet had already been stained red with blood. Mother-in-law looked grim, muttering, it's no use anymore." I supported mother-in-law as we stepped out, wiping the tears from the corners of my eyes, and demanded sharply, "What exactly happened? What did your mistress eat or use today? Tell me everything, and don't you dare hide anything." Sayue immediately knelt down, crying, "Old Madam, Marquis, you must seek justice for our mistress." Just now, as I was escorting her back, a young maid came and said that the lady had something to reward our mistress with. Since our mistress is heavily pregnant and couldn't walk easily, she waited for me right there. I thought I'd make it quick, but when I returned, I found our mistress lying on the ground, already unconscious. Nonsense. When did Our Lady ever say she had something to reward your mistress with? Lu Xiao was the first to question. I bowed to my mother-in-law. Please investigate clearly. Mother, both Lu Xiao and I never left the banquet for a moment. That maid must have lied in my name to frame me. Think about it, mother, if I truly couldn't tolerate the child in concubine Song's womb, I could have simply refused her entry into the household in the first place. Why go through the trouble of such a roundabout scheme? My mother-in-law pondered for a long while, then nodded. Good child. You are the most sensible and well-behaved in the world. How could I ever doubt you? Only then did I rise from the ground, looking into the room and saying, I hope Aunt Song pulls through this. Perhaps she saw the thief's face. Once she wakes up, everything will be clear. Song Wanching endured the pain all night and finally gave birth to a stillborn child at the break of dawn. It was a baby boy, with features almost identical to Lu Ziyan. My mother-in-law nearly fainted on the spot upon seeing it. Lu Ziyan hung his head, lost in thought. Fortunately, though the child was lost, Song Wanching was a survivor. Aside from being somewhat weak, she managed to keep her life. When she saw Lu Ziyan appear, Song Wanching's tears streamed down her face. Marquis, our child is gone. Lu Ziyan stepped forward with a heart full of pity, speaking softly. Wanching, you've suffered. I will definitely seek justice for you. What exactly happened last night? Song Wanching covered her flat stomach, her expression pained. As if recalling something, Lu Ziyan urged, don't be afraid, just say it. No matter who it is, I will stand up for you. As he spoke, both Lu Ziyan and Lin Yukai turned their gazes toward me. Song Wanching choked out, yes, it was the young lady. At these words, everyone's eyes widened in shock. After all, to outsiders, Lin Yukai and Song Wanching had no apparent conflicts. Lin Yukai forced a smile. Is Aunt Song so overwhelmed with grief that she's starting to talk nonsense? Song Wanching bit her lower lip, her expression sorrowful. Yesterday, a young maid came, claiming to be sent by the mistress to reward me with something. So I sent Tsaiwa to fetch it. Not long after Tsaiwa left, I thought of resting in the pavilion for a while, but unexpectedly, a man rushed out from behind and pushed me hard. Did you see the man's face clearly? I will never forget it, Song Wanching said through gritted teeth. It was Zhong Yang, the groom from the outer courtyard, the fiancé of the young mistress. After Song Wanching finished speaking, only her mournful sobs remained in the room. The mother-in-law, with a face full of shock, slapped Lin Yukai across the face. You wicked woman, I've treated you well. Why would you harm your cousin's child? On the surface, it appeared that Song Wanching and Lin Yukai had no interaction or connection whatsoever. Naturally, Song Wanching had no reason to falsely accuse Lin Yukai. No one knew that the carriage driver, Zhong Yang, was the very scoundrel who had violated Song Wanching. In that case, using him as a scapegoat in this lifetime wouldn't be unjust. Lin Yukai protested desperately. Aunt, I didn't do it. It really wasn't me. Unfortunately, her mother-in-law didn't believe her and immediately sent someone to apprehend Zhong Yang and the little maid who delivered the message. Lu Ziyan's face darkened, and he said he would go to arrest them personally. By the time Lu Ziyan found Zhong Yang and that maid, they had already been silenced. Lin Yukai knelt on the ground, crying out repeatedly, Aunt, cousin, it really wasn't me. How could I possibly harm my cousin's child? Someone must have framed me. Even if I wanted to harm Consort Song, I wouldn't have sent Zhong Yang to do it. Wouldn't that be leaving evidence against myself? The mother-in-law was utterly disappointed in Lin Yukai and ordered her to be sent to the estate outside the city to reflect on her actions. Lin Yukai was naturally unwilling. In the Marquis's household, she was a cousin, treated with the utmost respect and luxury. Once she went to the estate, those servants who were used to judging people by their status would surely find ways to bully her. Most importantly, Lin Yukai still dreamed of becoming the mistress of the Marquis's household. How could she possibly leave? Even a cornered dog will jump over a wall, let alone a person. Lin Yukai was forced into a corner and ended up revealing a shocking secret. She knelt on the ground, her back ramrod straight. Aunt, Yukai cannot leave. Her mother-in-law was so furious that she hurled the teacup beside her to the ground. Whether you leave or not is not up to you. How can the Marquis's household tolerate someone as vicious as you? Lin Yukai gazed at Lu Ziyan with infatuation, but unfortunately, he did not respond. He deeply loved Lin Yukai and had also been drawn to Song Wanching. In the first few days of my marriage to Lu Ziyan, he did take care of me, but none of these could compare to his own pride and status. Lin Yukai might have realized this, as she gently placed her hands on her stomach, Because I'm already carrying my cousin's child. What? Lin Yukai, shut up. The mother-in-law and Lu Ziyan spoke at the same time. Lin Yukai calmly recounted her long-standing affair with Lu Ziyan, but omitted the part about wanting to use Song Wn to get rid of me. Only mentioning the many hardships and regrets she endured due to her status, the mother-in-law cried out in anguish, "Such misfortune has befallen our family, such misfortune, you little harlot, how dare you seduce your cousin, and you, how could you face Aishwe?" Lu Ziyan quickly defended himself, "Aishwe, listen to me, it's not what you think between me and Yukai, she and I, you don't need to say any more." I forcefully shook off Lu Ziyan's hand. "I, Sheningshue, the legitimate daughter of the Duke's household, have been married to you, Lu Ziyan, for less than a year. First, you brought home the pregnant concubine Song from outside, and now you tell me you've been secretly involved with Lin Yukai, and she is carrying your child." Lu Ziyan's face flushed crimson with shame and anger, as if he wished he could die of humiliation. "Mother-in-law, my husband's actions have truly wounded my heart deeply. I will return to the Duke's residence for a while to calm myself," the mother-in-law said with difficulty. "It is Lu Ziyan who has wronged you, but Aishwe, you will always be the mistress of our Marquis household." I slightly bowed, not bothering to look at Lu Ziyan's ingratiating expression. "I understand. Daughter-in-law knows that the honor and disgrace of the Marquis's household are tied to mine, no matter how heartbroken I am. I would never do anything to harm the reputation of the Marquis's household." My mother-in-law nodded with relief, then turned and scolded Lin Yukai harshly. "I never should have taken you in. Look at what you've done to this once harmonious household." I stayed at the Duke's residence for several days in a row, spending my time drinking tea and playing chess with my parents. What a delightful time it was. Lu Ziyan came to see me a few times, and in front of my parents, I didn't embarrass him. But whenever he asked me when I would return to the Marquis's estate, I only had one answer: getting pregnant before marriage is something that can happen once but not twice. If Lin Yukai enters the household with a big belly, it won't just be me, even the Marquis's estate will become a laughingstock. 3 days later, Lu Ziyan came again with several chests of gold, silver, jewelry, and rare antiques to take me back. I know. This is already one of the few remaining assets of the Marquis's household. Recently, His Majesty has been thoroughly investigating the corruption among the nobility. Unable to access my dowry, my mother-in-law sold all of her own dowry to protect the family. Lu Ziyan also sold off his private properties everywhere. Even the assets he had secretly acquired for Lin Yukai were converted into silver. They barely managed to cover the deficit. Look, the Marquis's household isn't without money. They just don't want to spend it from their own pockets. After all, marrying a wife can save them hundreds of thousands of taels of silver. Why wouldn't they do it? Lu Ziyan privately told me that Lin Yukai had a miscarriage 2 days ago due to overthinking. I stared intently at the expression on Lu Ziyan's face, trying to find a trace of reluctance and sorrow, but unfortunately, there was none. He only cares about when I can go back with him. I accepted his gift and promised to return to the Marquis's residence the day after tomorrow. Lu Ziyan breathed a sigh of relief and went home cheerfully, but just 1 day before my return, the Marquis's residence sent someone with a message. Lu Ziyan had been poisoned. The imperial physician said that Lu Ziyan was poisoned with an unprecedented deadly toxin. Although Lu Ziyan is now conscious and appears no different from a normal person, if he does not take the antidote in time, his internal organs will gradually corrode and dissolve until he dies. As for the one who poisoned him, it was none other than Lin Yukai, who had just suffered a miscarriage. She raised her chin defiantly and laughed at her mother-in-law. "Karma, it's all karma. You kill my son, I kill your son. Isn't that fair?" The mother-in-law trembled all over, pointing a shaky finger at Lin Yukai and scolding, "You vicious woman, a child can be born again. We've already agreed to let you into the family, so why did you still poison Ziyan? Where is the antidote? Where is it?" Lin Yukai gave a strange smile. "I don't have an antidote either." Her mother-in-law had someone take Lin Yukai away for severe torture, yet she still did not utter a single word. The imperial physician predicted that, without taking the antidote in time, Lu Ziyan had at most half a month left to live, fearing that Lu Ziyan might not be able to endure it. My mother-in-law and I decided not to tell him about this matter. During the days Lu Ziyan was poisoned, I set aside our past grievances and attended to him day and night at his bedside. Moved to tears, he confessed to me with a runny nose and streaming eyes, "Aishwar, I've wronged you. I was blind." Not realizing that the best woman in the world was right by my side, tears welling in my eyes, I clasped his hand in return. After 7 exhausting days in Lucian's room, I finally collapsed from sheer exhaustion. When I woke up, my mother-in-law was holding my hand with concern. "Heaven has eyes," finally leaving hope for our Lu family. My mother-in-law said I was already over 2 months pregnant, and this child is the only hope of the Marquis's household. After learning of this, Lucian even ate a few more bites at dinner. "Akshu, from now on, I will devote myself only to you. I have already written a letter of divorce to Song Wanqing, asking her to leave the mansion and return home as soon as possible. Akshu, when the child is born, I will personally teach them martial arts. You can be the gentle mother, and I will be the strict father." All right. The strange poison invaded his internal organs, and Lucian's body deteriorated at an alarming rate. Finally, the day came when Lucian's life was about to burn out. Lin Yukai was tortured in the private prison until he was barely breathing. Yet he still did not reveal the whereabouts of the antidote. Lucian was breathing heavily, with more exhalation than inhalation. My mother-in-law had fainted 3 or 4 times from crying. Fearing something might happen to her, I instructed Lu Xiao to take her back to the listening bamboo hall and take good care of her. Lucian tremblingly placed his hand on my lower abdomen, his eyes filled with hope. "Aishwar, thank you. This child is the only descendant of our Lu family. You must take good care of him and raise him well." I smiled faintly and gently placed his hand back under the quilt. Leaning close to his ear, I whispered softly, "Husband, don't worry, I will take good care of my child. As for the descendants of your Lu family, you can take care of them yourself in the underworld." Lucian coughed violently, mustering all his strength to ask, "What do you mean? You speak in your belly, isn't it?" Lucian widened his eyes, wanting to get an answer from me. I just smiled at him. He took his last breath. 7 months later, I safely gave birth to a son. My mother-in-law was overjoyed and deeply grateful to me. Half a month after my son was born, my mother-in-law suddenly fell seriously ill and passed away. My son became the Marquis of Yong'an, and I, the youngest elderly lady in all of Shengjing. Extra story. After leaving the Marquis's estate, Song Wanqing reopened her medicine shop business. Within just a few years, she became one of the top merchants in Shengjing. I invested a significant amount of my dowry into her various ventures, and the annual dividends I received were so plentiful that it was enough to support myself comfortably. In the entire Shengjing, with the support of the dukes and marquis estates, I could practically walk sideways without a care. I looked at my son, who was reading, and smiled gently. Back then, I had given Lucian a sterilizing drug, never expecting that Song Wanqing had the same idea as me. But she was even more ruthless than I was. She used veterinary medicine. Over time, Lucian had long been unable to have children. The child in Lin Yuechi's womb was the last descendant of their Yong'an Marquis household. Unfortunately, Lucian personally destroyed his own hope. As for a son, there are plenty of outstanding men in the world. I just want a child. That's all. The end. And so the first story ends. What do you all think? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, please give this video a like. Now, here's the second story. After my death, I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. My husband, who once vowed to share life's joys and sorrows with me, didn't even wait until my first week memorial had passed before lavishly marrying his new lover. The adopted son I had poured my heart and soul into raising turned out to be the biological child of my husband and that new woman, after 15 years as a ghost. I watched them, a happy family of 3, full of joy and harmony. Then one day, I was reborn. I had returned. This time, I will take back everything. My name is Lu Wanwan. My father is the hereditary Marquis of Jing'an, and my mother is the Princess of Liang, the current emperor's most beloved sister. Born with such a prestigious background, I was destined to be one of the top noble ladies in the capital from birth. When I came of age, my family arranged a marriage for me, choosing that year's top scholar Liang Cheng. In my youth, I fell in love at first sight with Liang Cheng, a man of brilliant talent and refined elegance. The following year, I married into the Liang family and later gave birth to a daughter for him, which marked the beginning of my tragedy. During my pregnancy, I encountered the rebellion of the Crown Prince Li. As rebel forces stormed the capital, I was injured in the chaos, leaving me unable to bear any more children. Even my parents, who died defending the city, tragically lost their lives in the turmoil. As a result, my standing in the capital was almost completely destroyed. If not for my maternal grandparents' compassion and their frequent care and favoritism, I would likely have long been unwelcome in the Liang family. Because of my injuries, Liang Cheng pitied my condition and was unwilling to share a room with me anymore, feeling indebted to him. I did my utmost to manage the household affairs for him and used my personal connections to pave the way for his official career. This was how Liang Cheng achieved step-by-step promotions, eventually rising to the position of chief minister of the court, and the Liang family having no heir was ultimately a major issue. I didn't want him to be troubled, so I took the initiative to propose adopting a son. Later, I realized how ridiculous my guilt was. Because the rebel army that year was led by him into my courtyard, my difficulty in conceiving again was also deliberately caused by him, also that I would have no choice but to adopt the son he had with his mistress, Reborn, and returned. My first action was to go back to the Marquis residence to visit my parents. Seeing them alive before me, I could no longer hold back my tears. "My dear girl, why are you crying so bitterly for no reason? Did Liang Cheng bully you?" Mother said with concern. She never really liked Liang Cheng, always feeling that he came from a poor background and might be too calculating in nature. But back then, I insisted on marrying him, and Mother didn't want to break my heart, so she had no choice but to agree. "Mother, you worry too much. Liang Cheng treats me quite well," I explained. It wasn't that I didn't want to expose him directly, but one must have evidence for everything. With only my empty words and baseless claims, it would be difficult for Mother to pursue the matter. Moreover, Liang Cheng is an extremely deep and cunning person, highly skilled in sophistry. If I couldn't strike a fatal blow, it would only alert the enemy. Mother held my hand and rambled on with her instructions. "That's good then. If you have any grievances, just speak up. Your father and I will surely stand up for you." With the support and love of my parents, my heart felt as sweet as if I had eaten honey. I stayed at home for most of the day and returned to the Liang residence in the late afternoon. At sunset, the lingering glow of the evening sky was reflected across the heavens, with colorful scaly clouds resembling heavenly fire descending to the world, inexplicably radiant. In the back garden of the residence, my mother-in-law was playing chess with a woman whose hair was styled in a bun adorned with hairpins, and my husband, Liang Cheng, was also keeping them company. He usually hates watching these things the most, because he believes that our women's chess skills are too shallow and not as interesting as studying chess manuals. They were all somewhat surprised to see me appear. "Wanwan, why have you returned? Didn't you just go back to your parents' home? Shouldn't you spend more time with your in-laws?" My mother-in-law put down the chess piece and came forward to greet me. I sneered inwardly, but maintained a gentle expression as I said, "After all, I've married into the Liang family. How could I possibly stay at my parents' home all the time? Aren't you afraid that the imperial censors outside might hear and spread rumors before His Majesty about discord between my husband and me?" Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law's face instantly changed. It must be known that my mother was deeply cherished by my maternal grandparents, and by extension, they adored me as well. When I married, His Majesty even issued an edict bestowing upon me the title of Commandery Princess, granting me a stipend of 1,000 bushels. The imperial censor was known for his litigious nature, frequently reporting the private affairs of officials in court. Those who overstepped would be punished by the emperor's decree. Liang Cheng, last year's top scholar in the imperial examinations, entered the Hanlin Academy as a 6th-rank compiler. His marriage to me made him a thorn in the side of many officials. If my maternal grandfather were to learn of our discord, whether true or not, my official career would inevitably become fraught with difficulties. My mother-in-law, who aspires for her son to reach the 1st rank and secure an honorary title for her, could not allow such a thing to happen. She immediately put on an apologetic smile. "Wanwan is right. It was my lack of consideration. Please don't blame me." Liang Cheng then stepped forward and asked about my family background, clearly trying to shift the blame. I smiled faintly without responding, but my gaze remained fixed on the woman before me. This sister looks unfamiliar. Liang Lang, won't you introduce us? This is WN Niang, Cheng's cousin. Earlier this year, her husband passed away, and with no other relatives, she had no choice but to come seek refuge with Cheng. Seeing my inquiry, my mother-in-law was the first to explain. Lin Wanyang pays respects to the madam. The woman stepped forward and performed a curtsy with perfect etiquette. In truth, even without the latter's introduction, I couldn't possibly fail to recognize this woman. After all, in my previous life, I had raised her son for half a lifetime, so it's cousin Liang's cousin. There's no need for such formality among family. Please rise. I raised my hand slightly in a gesture, but my body remained unmoved. Her posture was completely natural. Yet it made Liang Cheng, standing nearby, change his expression, though he dared not say anything more to provoke me, because I am a princess, not to mention she is just a distant cousin. Even if she were my mother-in-law, if I disregarded propriety, it should be her who bows to me. In my past life, I loved Liang Cheng, so I naturally wouldn't do anything to make him uncomfortable. But now, who cares whether he's happy or not? Cousin, your belly seems to be quite far along, doesn't it? I glanced at Lin Wn Niang's slightly swollen abdomen and smiled meaningfully. This is the very ungrateful wretch I raised back in the day. Madam, I am already over 2 months pregnant, Lin Wn Niang replied hesitantly, avoiding my gaze. I chuckled lightly and said, over 2 months along, then you must be careful. The first trimester is the most unstable period. Better not let any accidents happen. My husband is quite the bold one, daring to bring his mistress and illegitimate child right under my nose as the lawful wife. You see, Lin Wan's husband passed away before the new year, and now the Lantern Festival on the 15th hasn't even arrived yet. The timing of this posthumous child simply doesn't hold up under scrutiny. In my past life, I must have been utterly foolish to have failed to see through such an obvious matter. These two, not only did they engage in an illicit affair without proper matchmaking, but they couldn't even wait out the mourning period. The Liang family truly is a den of thieves and prostitutes. I didn't confront them on the spot, but neither did I treat Lin Wn with the same hospitality as I had in my past life, ordering the servants to attend to her properly. Just keeping him at a distance like this made Liang Cheng the first to lose his composure, because all the money in the Liang residence came from my dowry, and even the mansion was a gift from His Majesty to me. As a newly appointed 6th-rank official from a humble background, how much salary could he possibly have? The servants in the mansion were all handpicked by my parents. Their contracts were entirely in my hands, so naturally, they followed my every command. Without my approval, Liang Cheng couldn't spend a single copper coin on Lin Wn Niang. The next day, during the morning meal, a table was laden with exquisite dishes. Most of these were my favorites, and I had instructed the maids to have the kitchen prepare them. Having been dead for so many years, I had long forgotten the taste of food, and naturally, I wanted to savor it properly. Before I could pick up my chopsticks, Liang Cheng suddenly erupted, slamming his bowl heavily onto the table. He stood up and questioned me coldly. Lu Wanwan, is this how you manage the servants? As the master of the Liang household, when I want to withdraw some silver, they dare to obstruct me in every possible way. If you look down on me, why did you have to marry into my Liang family? Since you've become a bride of the Liang family, don't bring your princess airs and put on airs here. His voice was cold, but I could detect a hint of fluster in it. I looked up in surprise, because I had never seen such an expression on his face before. My mother-in-law chimed in from the side. Wanwan, don't blame me for saying this, but you really shouldn't have withheld the silver. Cheng has just entered the official career and needs to grease many palms. You are husband and wife. It's only right to support each other. When Cheng establishes his footing in the court later, you'll be able to enjoy the benefits too. Listening to the mother and son playing good cop, bad cop in front of me, I suddenly found it ridiculous. Enjoy a life of luxury. What a load of nonsense. Right now, this is my dowry, and Liang Cheng is already scheming to give it to Lin Wana. If he really makes it big someday, who knows how he'll look down on me. Come to think of it, it's actually quite understandable. After all, He comes from a humble background and achieved success at a young age, so it's only natural that he's full of pride and ambition. As for why I never saw him lose his temper before, well, in my past life, I was just too foolish. I didn't even wait for anyone to ask. I eagerly offered up my dowry to pave the way for him. This made him believe that his success was entirely due to his own talent, and that I was merely a woman with a bit of money. But how could he know that in the imperial capital, under the emperor's very feet, there is no shortage of capable and extraordinary individuals? Yet how many truly rise to prominence? The art of navigating officialdom runs deep, and in this lifetime, I want to see just how far his career can go without the silver I spent on his behalf. With my thoughts clear, I looked at the person and smiled. My lord, you jest. The title of Junju was personally bestowed by His Majesty. I have no say in whether I accept it or not, unless, perhaps, you do. Everyone knows that imperial decrees cannot be defied. With this statement, I had effectively placed a big hat on Liang Cheng. Liang Cheng certainly didn't dare to admit it. He hadn't expected me to be so sharp-tongued and could only stare in frustration. Lu Wanwan, stop beating around the bush with me. I'm talking to you about money. So, are you going to pay up today or not? I had already made up my mind, so I naturally wore an expression that said, I don't have the money. Liang Cheng's face turned livid with rage, and he repeatedly said, fine, if you truly dislike me, you can write a letter of separation and let me leave the household. I said very calmly. However, the word separation seemed to strike a nerve with my mother-in-law and Liang Cheng. They looked at me in shock, completely bewildered, unable to understand how things had escalated to this point. My mother-in-law quickly put on an ingratiating expression. Wanwan, what nonsense are you talking? Cheng'e was just venting some frustration he picked up from the servants. It was a momentary fit of anger. How could you even mention divorce? It was indeed his fault, and I apologize on his behalf. My mother-in-law shot Liang Cheng a meaningful look. The latter was unwilling but still apologized to me. I actually felt a bit regretful. If Liang Cheng had agreed just like that, I might have thought more highly of him. As for now, the only bit of integrity he had in my eyes is gone. I didn't dwell on the matter, because what I wanted wasn't a letter of divorce, but to ruin his reputation. Perhaps because we had argued during the day, Liang Cheng unexpectedly came to my door at night. In my past life, I would have been overjoyed, but in this lifetime, I see things clearly. It wasn't that he had a change of heart, it was the Liang family fearing I was serious. If we were to separate, not to mention the 100 acres of fertile land in the outskirts of the capital and the 108 dowry chests, I would take everything with me. Even the current residence would no longer be theirs to live in. Liang Cheng is a man who values his reputation above all else. Being thrown out is something he absolutely cannot accept. He came to apologize and make amends, but I had Sayue turn him away, once or twice. He might have thought I was still angry, but as it happened more often, it became impossible to hide. My mother-in-law went directly to the Marquis's residence to demand an explanation. In-laws. This young couple has just married. How can they stop sharing a room over a quarrel about money? You should know that the second of the 7 grounds for divorce is childlessness. A woman who has been divorced for violating any of the 7 grounds will find it difficult to remarry later. As my mother said, if you truly want a divorce, you shouldn't take the blame upon yourself. Wanwan, listen to your mother, I responded in a low voice, but on the way back, I gritted my teeth and deliberately sprained my leg, because I had exerted too much force. My ankle was frighteningly swollen, and the maid, Sayue, was so scared she burst into tears. I said coldly, Sayue, remember that I fell accidentally, not on purpose. Do you understand? Sayue asked me in confusion why I would harm myself like this. I shook my head, not telling her that I couldn't bear the thought of being intimate with Liang Cheng at the moment. I still love him to the point of life and death. A sudden change would easily invite a lot of unnecessary trouble, but settling was out of the question. Liang Cheng wasn't so easily fooled, so the injury had to look convincing. Sure enough, when we returned to the residence, Liang Cheng didn't believe it. It wasn't until the Empress sent a royal physician to check my pulse, and the diagnosis was to rest well and avoid any strenuous activities. Thus, Liang Cheng's desire to share a room with me was finally put to rest. A bone injury takes 100 days to heal, I also enjoyed quite a few leisurely days, but because the consummation of the marriage was delayed, my mother-in-law became visibly anxious. She wasn't afraid of the Liang family line dying out. Lin Wn Liang was already carrying a child in her womb. The reason my mother-in-law was so anxious was simply because she wanted to use the child to tie me down, in my mother-in-law's eyes. Without children, I could leave the marriage at any time. The Liang family now can't do without me, their cash cow, but Liang Cheng isn't worried at all. In his view, since I was so determined to marry him back then, how could I possibly want a divorce so easily? He thinks I'm just doing this to get his attention. And once I see it's not working, I'll give in. So, he's quite happy to keep his distance from me, sneaking off every day to spend time with Lin Wn Liang. Enjoying their happy little family of 3, he thought he was being discreet, but the Liang family is full of my informants. How could he possibly hide anything from me? Saiwa couldn't help but complain. How could the young master do such a thing? That's his cousin. How could he face you, miss? After all the affection you've shown him, this young maid is still too inexperienced. If I hadn't kept her in check, she might have ruined my plans. I've been enduring this humiliation. Not because I genuinely want to let that wretched pair have their way, but because I'm waiting for an opportunity, a chance to separate and leave. With the memories from my past life, I knew this opportunity was about to arrive. On the 3rd day of the 3rd month, the Shangxi festival. It was the 2nd month since my rebirth. This day was special, as it was the Empress's birthday. I deliberately stalled for time until the palace matron came to inquire about the situation. Upon receiving Saiwa's signal, I immediately smashed a teacup and began to make a scene. Very well, in such a grand Zhuangyuan residence, there actually exists such despicable theft. Guards, search every room for me, even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. You must find the birthday gift I prepared for the Empress. The entire Liang family was present at that moment. Seeing me erupt without any apparent reason, they all stared at me in shock. Liang Cheng frowned and scolded even more harshly. Lu Wanwan, what madness has taken hold of you again? You never mentioned what the Empress's birthday gift was, so how could anyone have stolen it? My mother-in-law's face also looked particularly unpleasant. Searching the room is a serious matter, and if handled poorly, it could ruin someone's reputation. Wanwan, think carefully again. Did you perhaps misplace it somewhere and just can't recall at the moment? What kind of talk is this from my husband and mother-in-law? As a dignified princess, would I deliberately wrong someone? I questioned coldly with a sneer. At the same time, I caught a flicker of panic in Lin Wn Liang's eyes. Unreasonable. I'd like to see who dares to lay a hand today. Liang Cheng said coldly. Of course I know why he wanted to stop it. He was afraid the traces he left behind with Lin Wanyang would give him away. This tense standoff, with swords drawn and bows bent, was witnessed by the appointed matron just as it reached its peak. What's going on here? Miss Wn. The matron who arrived was surnamed Kong, the most trusted stewardess by the Empress's side, and an elder who had watched me grow up since childhood. Matron Kong, seeing the anger on my face, immediately asked for the reason. I quickly slipped into character, my eyes reddening and tears falling in one seamless motion. Nanny, you have no idea. The birthday gift I prepared for Her Highness was stolen by a vile thief. As the mistress of the household, I am unable to conduct a thorough investigation. That birthday gift was something Wanwan went through great trouble to find. Delaying Her Highness's birthday celebration is a crime I cannot bear, I said, sobbing tearfully. Nanny Kong's face instantly darkened as she looked at everyone. My mother-in-law, being shrewd, quickly realized that something was amiss. Please don't misunderstand. Nanny, it's just that we have relatives from outside the family visiting, and searching the rooms really isn't appropriate, she hurriedly explained with an apologetic smile. But I pressed the issue again. Mother-in-law, you really don't understand what's important here. No matter how significant my cousin is, how could she be more important than Her Highness? If after the investigation it's proven that I caused my cousin to lose face, whether it's silver, jewelry, property deeds, or land contracts, whatever I have, my cousin only needs to ask, and I will compensate her fully. Liang Cheng was driven to lose his composure by my tone of throwing money at the problem. How can reputation be measured by mere silver? Lu Wanwan, don't think that just because you have some money, you can humiliate people like this. Mama Kong, however, was so furious her face turned ashen. Aside from my parents and their majesties, she cares for me the most. Seeing Liang Cheng defend an outsider and criticize me like this, how could she possibly stand by and watch? The princess is absolutely right. Since this was meant as a tribute for Her Majesty, it belongs to the imperial family. Now that it has been misplaced and stolen, it should indeed be thoroughly investigated. If Scholar Liang believes this might harm your sister's reputation, then I shall enter the palace and request an edict from the Empress on behalf of the princess. This would silence all gossip. What does the scholar think? Matron Kong, having spent half her life navigating the inner palace, had long been accustomed to dealing with countless schemes and intrigues. This move undoubtedly helped me by cutting off Liang Chengsha's retreat, forcing him to act. Moreover, by addressing Liang Cheng by his official title instead of Commandery Prince Consort, she indirectly expressed her dissatisfaction. Such a trivial matter is not worth troubling your highness. If the Commandery Princess wishes to search, then let the search proceed. Seeing that she could not stop it, my mother-in-law, fearing the situation would escalate, had no choice but to lower her head. Since you insist on searching, you might as well tell us what it is, so the servants don't make false accusations, Liang Cheng said with an angry expression.
Cheng struggled to his feet, glaring at me with fury. Lu Wanwan. You wretched woman, it was you who framed WN Niang, wasn't it? That purple mountain ginseng, you did it on purpose. If it were truly a tribute for the Empress, why would you keep it in the storeroom, you venomous viper? After all, Liang Chengsha was a top scholar who had passed the imperial examinations with honors, so he wasn't entirely foolish. His earlier failure to see through the deception was simply because he hadn't grasped the situation in time. Yes, this trap was set by me. You despicable couple, daring to carry on your affair right under my nose. What wouldn't I dare to do? I admitted it openly and confidently. At this moment, I had returned precisely to kick them while they were down, so every word I spoke was aimed right at Liang Cheng's weakest spot. Repeatedly calling them despicable couple, I made this self-righteous top scholar so furious he spat blood again. You wretched woman, I never should have allowed Chenga to marry you in the first place. I'll tear that filthy mouth of yours apart. My mother-in-law saw her husband coughing up blood in anger and, like an enraged tigress, charged at me with claws bared. As expected, she was easily subdued by the servants, struggling like a shrew. I took the hot tea handed to me by a servant and unceremoniously splashed it in her face. The scalding tea made her scream in pain. I grabbed the latter's face. Old woman, I've endured you for a long time. How dare you throw your weight around with me? In my previous life, this dear mother-in-law of mine never missed a chance to impose rules on me. To win Liang Cheng's favor, I naturally complied with everything. But in the end, I still ended up with the label of narrow-minded. Since that's the case, in this life, I'll just live up to her expectations. My mother-in-law lost her husband in middle age and struggled financially for a few years, but ever since Liang Cheng passed the imperial exam and became a scholar, she's been riding high. When has she ever suffered such humiliation? I only wish I could dash my head against the door and die on the spot. How could I ever let her have her way and sully the threshold of our estate? Escort the old madam to the Buddhist hall. She has always been fond of fasting and chanting sutras, I instructed calmly. The servants complied without hesitation, promptly dragging her away. Lu Wanwan, we are not yet divorced. Mother is still your elder. How dare you? Liang Cheng, seeing his own mother being humiliated, was so angry that his hands trembled. I, however, laughed and said, I have no such elder. Instead of wasting time arguing with me here, you'd better sign the divorce agreement early. Don't forget, your beloved WN Niang is still in the imperial prison, waiting for you to find another way to save her. Having spent most of my life with him, I truly understood Liang Cheng well. With just a simple sentence, I rendered him speechless. With the Empress's decree, the divorce was a done deal, and the days that followed, I lived in carefree ease. Every day, I watched Liang Cheng running around, looking disheveled and exhausted, as he tried to use his connections to pull some strings, but the reality was harsh. The friends he had once made all closed their doors and refused to see him the moment they heard he was going against the Empress's decree. Liang Cheng had never imagined that he would face so many rejections in his life. After being rejected once again, he couldn't help but question. Then came the infuriating mockery. Editor Liang, you were the top scholar in the imperial examinations back then. How could you not even understand such a simple principle? No matter how talented you are, you're still just a minor 6th rank official. The only reason you received courtesy from my master before was out of respect for Princess Duanyang and the Marquis's household. If you were encountering obstacles in your official career, my master might have extended a helping hand out of appreciation for your talents, but you come here for a mere mistress. The servant's face showed a mocking expression. A lowly servant girl like her, daring to humiliate the princess and offend the empress, she thoroughly deserves to die, Lord Liang. You should return. My master has said that you need not visit again in the future. Liang Cheng returned to his residence in a daze, and upon seeing the 3 large characters on the plaque at the entrance, Duanyang Manor, he suddenly snapped out of his trance. All his honors, except for the title of top scholar, were obtained because he had married a princess. Without the title of prince consort, he was nothing. At this moment, his desire for power overwhelmed his last shred of reason. He could not allow himself to be abandoned by the emperor. He had studied diligently for over a decade, not just to become a lowly 6th-rank official. He wanted to become the Grand Tutor to the Crown Prince, the Chief Grand Secretary. Therefore, he could not agree to a divorce. No one else can alter the Empress's decree, but Lu Wanwan certainly can. She is the Empress's most cherished treasure. As long as she is willing to change her testimony, I will remain the commandery prince consort. Liang Cheng charged frantically into the main courtyard, but he was no longer the master of the estate and couldn't get in at all. Wanwan, I know I was wrong. I was blinded and deceived by that woman's lies, but I still love you. I beg you, give me another chance. I'll do anything you ask, he shouted without caring about his image. As I stepped out of the main room, I heard this disgusting voice and suddenly found it somewhat amusing. This man truly knows when to yield and when to stand his ground. That he would suddenly drop his airs, needless to say, he must have been snubbed everywhere. Thinking of the news just delivered from the imperial prison, Lin Wenang has confessed. The latter was just an ordinary person. The oppressive atmosphere of the imperial prison was unbearable even for a 7-foot-tall man, so without any interrogation, she confessed on her own. However, the amusing part was that Lin Wanyang only admitted to seducing Liang Cheng, but she denied that the father of the child in her womb was Liang Cheng. At a time like this, stubbornly insisting that the child was Liang Cheng's would have been far more useful than denying it. At least Liang Cheng would have done everything in his power to save her, yet she denied it, which could only mean that the child truly was not Liang Cheng's. I understand Lin Wenyang's concerns. She saw that Liang Cheng couldn't save her and was afraid the truth would be discovered, which would add the crime of deceiving the emperor to her offenses. I suddenly found it somewhat amusing. Liang Cheng had made me unable to bear children, yet he ended up raising someone else's child for his entire life. This is truly what they call the wicked will be punished by their own wickedness. I threw Lin Wenyang's confession right in Liang Cheng's face. He was stunned at first. But when he saw the content of the testimony, his entire body trembled like a sieve. No, impossible. How could Wenyang insult me like this? He looked up, his eyes bloodshot. To crush his delusions, I had come prepared. I know you don't believe it, so I've brought a witness. Why don't you ask them yourself? I raised my hand to signal, and saw you leading a man over. The man had delicate features and bore a faint resemblance to Liang Cheng in demeanor. Tell me about your relationship with Lin Wanyang. Be thorough, and all these silver notes will be yours. The latter's eyes lit up at the sight of the silver notes on the tray, and without hesitation, he recounted his past with Lin Wanyang. He even described the butterfly-shaped birthmark on her left chest in vivid detail. Such an intimate secret could only be known by a man and woman who had been completely intimate with each other. Liang Cheng fled as if he'd gone mad, satisfied. I rewarded the man with the silver. At the same time, I couldn't help but find it somewhat amusing. Liang Cheng was the epitome of self-interest. He could insult Lin Shi to my face just to secure his position as the commandery prince's son-in-law. Yet if Lin Shi truly turned out to be the way he had portrayed her, he himself couldn't accept it. He only allows himself to betray others, but refuses to let others betray him. What a fine example of a top scholar, so lenient with himself, yet so strict with others. The 1-month deadline had arrived. Liang Cheng did not want to be charged with a crime, so he signed the divorce agreement. At this moment, he had long lost the youthful vigor he possessed just a month ago. His clothes were stained, his hair disheveled, and his body was enveloped in a strong smell of alcohol, making him the very image of a drunkard. Lord Liang, since you have divorced the princess, then receive the decree and leave the capital immediately to take up your post. The eunuch announcing the decree spoke in a sharp voice. Your servant receives the decree. Liang Cheng bowed to accept the decree, his face full of bitterness. He never expected that the current emperor would dote on Lu Wanwan so much. No sooner had he divorced than the imperial decree for his transfer came down. It was clear that they did not want him to remain in the capital, lest he tarnish her reputation. Liang Cheng was now filled with deep regret. Had he known it would come to this, he would never have let things escalate to such a point, destroying his chance to ascend into the inner court. At the same time, he grew even more resentful of the emperor's incompetence and excess, resentful of Lu Wanwan's scheming, resentful of the entire Li dynasty. But even so, what's done is done, and he no longer had any chance for regret. I returned to the Marquis's mansion and became the beloved princess of my parents and the emperor. With no worries about food or clothing, I lived freely and unrestrained. Perhaps the Liang family incident had made my mother too wary. As she no longer forced me to marry, life was carefree and easy. And only then did I realize how effortlessly one could live. The hardships of my past life have now all become fleeting clouds. A life free from attachments and worries is what I truly desire. I thought life would continue on peacefully, but half a month later, I suddenly learned that Liang Chen had died on his way to a new post after leaving the capital. According to the report from the courier station official, they encountered bandits along the route, and he was beheaded with a single sword strike, dying instantly. And it wasn't just him, the maids, servants, and even my mother-in-law who were traveling with him all met the same fate. Without exception, perishing together. Upon hearing this, I was momentarily stunned, then turned and instructed Sayua to take the freshly peeled lotus seeds I had just prepared to my father in the study. Sayua looked somewhat puzzled but still went to carry out the task. I lazily lay back in the rocking chair, gazing at the sky, and suddenly laughed aloud. So this is what it feels like to have powerful backing. It's worth noting that the Lingzhong region has always been peaceful. The fact that Liang Cheng died at the hands of bandits clearly suggests something fishy is going on. Liang Cheng had only been in office for 2 years and had yet to make enemies in the court. Apart from my father, I couldn't think of anyone else who would dare to act so recklessly on his behalf. Though it may seem a bit rash, it's hardly a major offense. With the power of the Marquis's estate, what does it matter to eliminate one transferred official? Moreover, catching a thief requires evidence. This matter was clearly the doing of the bandits in the mountains. What does it have to do with my Jing'an Marquis estate? The last trace of gloom in my heart vanished with the confirmation of this news. After nightfall, with my appetite greatly improved, I devoured 2 large bowls in a row. The end.